Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching 3R Youth Event. We have finished six powerful speakers. We are here on to introduce seventh speaker of the day, uh, Purnesh Gali. Purnesh is the head of analytics at Hindalco, and he would be talking about in a 12 minutes session AI first manufacturing. So we have seen food tech, or rather, we have heard food tech, we have heard fashion tech. Now we are talking about the whole piece around AI first manufacturing. Let me briefly introduce Purnesh before he joins for the session. Purnesh is head analytics at Hindalco, and he has led a variety of teams across analytics, product engineering, and emerging technologies in driving strategic and transformational initiatives for top Fortune companies. And he would be talking about AI first manufacturing in a 12 minutes time window. Purnesh, over to you. Thank you.
Today, I'm going to talk about AI in manufacturing. But before that, let's understand the importance of manufacturing in current context. Uh, so, if many countries are trying to be resilient with their supply chains, and when we see news, uh, it appears pretty frequently that many countries are announcing multi-billion-dollar investments in manufacturing and in setting up new factories. So what this all means is that manufacturing may go through a period of renaissance over the coming years, right? So, but what does it mean for the shop floor? Can is the factory floor going to look like what it was 20, 30 years ago? Is it just going to be mechanical, electrical, chemical engineers and highly people driven, or is it going to be augmented with technology and to be so in a highly interconnected world, right? So where a factory in India is really trying to compete with a factory in Europe on quality, consistency, and sustainability metrics. So how can you really differentiate? How can you really compete and make a globally competitive product? Is by adapting some of or many of the digital technologies, and many factories and many organizations are of course adopting it currently. Technology, it could be technologies like robotics, drones, or sensorization, or digital twins, adaptive manufacturing, industrial IoT platforms, and of course AI, right? So what this all means to the shop floor and the factory and manufacturing in general, unlike traditional knowledge, right? So this all of this is going to create many opportunities for highly skilled technology workers, right? So in fact, I consider myself as a factory worker. It's just that I work with the data to unlock something meaningful for the shop floor. That's only different. But with all of this, the goal is still that how do we move from a people-driven organization to process-driven organization to a data-centric organization, right? So how can we truly be AI first? Is it as simple as developing a machine learning model for every process that is out there? May not be, right? Because as we understand, it's much more complex than just developing a machine learning model. So, and from my experience working in this space for the last 4 to 5 years, there are probably four or five things that are important that I'm going to share. So first, let's start with the strategy. Right now, what do I mean by strategy at a broad level? So at a tactical level, of course, I won't. There is a problem related to a quality or an asset, right? So those are all obvious. But at a more strategic level, every industry gets disrupted at different time scales and time frames. So for a consumer facing internet business could get disrupted at the click of a button or the switch of an app. So it could really happen in anywhere from minutes to weeks, right? So the companies here really fight for customer attention through great products, and that the objective there and everything from a technology to AI, the strategy is very different than a B2B or a B2C manufacturing companies, where the customers that they're serving and the industries that they're serving, that's a very different opportunity. So the starting point should be a very clear understanding of why you want to be data centric, how AI is going to play a strategic advantage for you, right? This is where a following playbook of others may not really help. So you need a team that can really understand your business nuances and then coming up with a strategy for specific business. So second could is setting the right goals. So this is very tricky, especially for AI kind of initiatives. So what the analogy that I would draw upon is, it is like investing, especially early stage investing, where VCs are investing in early stage startups, but it will take many years for them to really find out if that investment is successful. But they cannot wait multiple years to find out if they have done good or not. Right, so for the outcome to show, for the outcome to find out if they've done well or not. So what they instead do is they create robust processes, and they create process specific goals that they can track, that they can measure every quarter, every half year, and every year. This allows them to focus on the process and not worry too much about the outcomes, because they know that it will take care of itself. In fact, Mr. Sudhir Sitapati, in his excellent book, right? So the CEO of Factory, he talks about how Unilever has moved away from outcome-driven model to a more a process-driven model, even for their field sales executive team, right? So if so the same applies to AI as well. Understand and define your processes, have process specific goals. It could be operational KPIs or anything related to productivity, efficiency, and define your first order, second order effects, and the financial outcomes will obviously automatically follow. So moving on to a little bit on the tactical side, a little bit, right? So now, since we are talking about manufacturing, what has happened dramatically in the last decade or so is the decreasing cost of sensors and increasing cost of computing power at the same time has led to massive deployment of sensors at factories, and that those sensors and various it could be CCTV cameras or various sources that are generating massive data sets in the factories. And these data sets again are being could be leveraged to build could be sent to the cloud or somewhere to really build machine learning models to improve processes. And these machine learning models sometimes have to be deployed at the factory, at the edge, to really provide alerts at the right time. So imagine if you have a safety use case, if you have developed a computer vision model to detect a safety incidents at a plant. We cannot really afford to send the data from the factory to the cloud and for an alert to be generated, because an incident would have happened by then. So the inference has to happen at the edge. So an edge strategy or an edge intelligence, especially an edge intelligence strategy on what use cases you have to run at the edge, becomes extremely important, right? So, and this is nothing new. If this is drawing along the lines of, if you look at the history of computing, it started with mainframes, which is centralized, then it went to client server architecture, which is decentralized, then now and again to cloud, which is again centralized, and now back to decentralized with a combination of cloud to edge. So for any manufacturing business to really succeed or have a shot at being AI first, it needs to have an AI edge intelligence strategy. Moving on, so the next and probably one of the most fundamental things is these manufacturing units are generating hundreds and thousands of data points every second from multiple sensors and the IoT platforms and so on and so forth. There is data from CCTV cameras, there is data from logbooks, there are data from even ERP systems. Some systems are on the cloud. Right? So how do you integrate all of this data and create into one place and then create an analytics ready data set, right? So the idea here really should be very simple, which is that if anyone wants to start an analytics project, it should be at the click of a button, right? So what happens without having analytics ready data sets is teams and projects usually spend 3 to 4 months just collecting the data from different systems and creating and cleaning that, right? So have an analytics ready data sets. This is huge productivity improvement. So now the next is right. So what I would like to talk about is around how machine learning can help a business to be sustainable, right? So while it may be obvious, right, so that sustainability is important, and so what one thing that I had a profound realization is that large companies can have a positive impact on the environment, that it is very hard for and will be able to move the needle, that an individual will not be able to do, just because of the impact of it. So what that means, even a simple things that you are able to uh, do at a organization scale are going to have a tremendous impact. So take an example of logistics and supply chain. If and supply chain, I'm not talking about hyperlocal delivery, but I'm talking about deliveries that take, let's say, 200, 500, or 1000 kilometers. So if you're able to optimize even 5 to 10 kilometers from the route and across hundreds of trips, and across multiple days, right? So that number of kilometers that you have saved quickly adds up. So the beauty of this is that this not only helps with your bottom line, that's a direct impact on bottom line, because every kilometer reduced is every dollar saved, but it will also have an immediate impact on the environment as well, with CO2 emissions. Same with factories. If you are applying machine learning to make your processes efficient, if you're using the same amount of energy to produce more product, which means you're reducing your per ton consumption of carbon, right? So both the impacts, right? So sustainability not only from material science or large research projects, but sustainability even by improving day-to-day processes, by applying machine learning, could have a very meaningful impact. So the last, I would say, but probably the most important thing out of all, is having the right talent, right? So now, right, so it's not just hiring data engineers and data scientists and trying to figure out how to become an AI first manufacturing company. It's much more difficult and much more nuanced than that, because manufacturing, especially some manufacturing industries, B2B manufacturing and maybe process industries, right? So the use cases, the literature is not out there. So whatever you're trying to build, so for example, if you want to build a digital twin for a process manufacturing industry, so you'll have to figure out how to combine a first principle based model with a machine learning model, and to really come up with a final solution. You'll not find many proven examples, or you'll not find many documents or many references across the globe that help you explain how to do this. So this is where you really need fundamental first principle based thinkers to really come up with solutions. And same with, for example, neural networks on a consumer side is it's a very probably it is evolving, but there are proven examples around, let's say, computer vision on an LLP. But can you try neural networks on an industrial IoT kind of a data set? Does it even work? Does it even make sense, right? Are there examples around it? So talent is extremely important. So there's a exciting field, very hard problem, very complex problems, not many use cases and proven examples out there. So you have to come up with a strategy whether to build internally, or maybe building internally maybe better in the long run, right? So with that, four or five things, I would like to thank you for paying attention.
Thank you so much, Purnesh. And manufacturing has been considered a laggard when it comes to adoption of AI. More importantly, the term smart manufacturing has caught the fancy of many of the manufacturing companies and enterprises, and specifically with operational dexterity becoming the norm. AI as a force propellant will actually change the entire shop processes. And as Purnesh rightly mentioned, it's also about ensuring that you're not just plonking data scientists, data architects, or data engineer. It's about creating a right team with very diversified skills, understanding what needs to be done in terms of creating that flavor of smart manufacturing, and then coming out with the right strategy to kind of put or embed AI into the scheme of things. Thank you so much, Punesh, for your time. Really appreciate.